stand for the national anthem. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, tonight on the agenda, Mr. Brown will be with the Gateway High School track repairs, scope for the summer of 2019, an update on the Animated Stadium Grant Project. Mr. Brown, do you have anything to add?
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about the track that is the first item on the agenda that we actually are going to present to the board for approval for the 2019-20 budget. It's in need of repairs and resurfacing, so we have gotten quotes. And the reason we are submitting it and looking at it now is in order to have it done in the summer of 2019. We have to be on a schedule in order to make that happen.
Okay.
So even though the work that we're proposing would not happen until July of 2019, we want to get that in front of the board for approvals to be able to get that in the queue so we're first in line to get our work done.
Okay.
Since we have a lot of things during the summer months that we have to be concerned with, a lot of sports activities, band activities. Last year we lost all of those activities due to the stadium wall renovation. We don't want to short those groups this year. We want to make sure we have it available. So it's important that we get this, in front of the board in order to be approved. The track is in pretty bad shape, and now's the time to do it.
Do you know how old the track is?
That one was
03 was when it was
03,
originally put in.
What's
04
that?
year.
2003, and then whenever we repaired the exterior wall, that was when we had it resprayed and relined, and that was probably maybe 09, somewhere around there. I'd have to double check that, but it's definitely due for some extended maintenance.
It does need that.
In the summer of what would have been 2003, when we added the artificial turf field and we expanded the track, which was a 6-lane track, and widened it, added the retaining wall on the side opposite the stands. At that point in time, it was done. It was done by A&L Contracting. So whenever the wall on both ends kind of collapsed, and I don't mean fully collapsed, but it sunk a little bit, we repaired it. But it's been quite some time since it's been done.
Mr. Brown, can you tell me a little bit about the Animated Ramp Project?
At this point, the ramp project that we took on was completed as far as all the scope of the work that we contracted out. At this point, we are expecting in sometime this week product to face the front of the bleachers, the wall in front of it. The initial project was 100% and complete. This was an addition that was added after the fact, so we're looking at, once the material comes in, hopes to have it completed before any playoff games.
Is it en route right now?
It is. I got a phone call. It's somewhere in transit.
Really?
So we're just waiting to see it. We did receive part of the supplies, but they were local. They weren't meant, the actual product. It was the products that adhere it. So we're just waiting on it to show up.
Okay.
I think with the ramp and the retaining wall, if you want to call it.
Retaining wall and railings.
And along with the railings, we've had an opportunity to view, inspect, work through the punch list. We were very pleased with the work.
Yeah, we've got
Right.
nothing left. on.
I heard through the grapevine, Mr. Short,
Mhm.
you made a suggestion, bring it like a small contractor in to put the wall up, to make it easier and faster to get it up.
Mhm.
And instead of overloading the maintenance department, it might take them a year to put it up, which you could probably get it done in 3 days.
Bob and I have talked about it. He has a few companies in mind that we would perhaps bring to the board about subcontracting that work out.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lefsmith, before you move on in the agenda, we've got the track coach here and a parent.
Yes, sir.
And I would like to offer a PowerPoint, shows the condition of the track. Could we do that?
Whatever you want to do.
Tom needs to leave pretty quickly.
You
Could we
can do whatever you want to do.
Bob, can we hit the one section of the lights? Probably near us. Yeah, that'll be fine.
All right, guys, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the condition of the track. On behalf of Tom LaBeouf, he was able to make it tonight, so I'm happy to see him here. And Chris Clifford, he's our athletic trainer. So let's jump ahead. I'm learning how to do this. A Gateway parent has written to the track coach and to the board members saying that the track was worn, has a hard surface. This person was an athlete, ran track here before, and has watched her son and others come out of practice with ice taped to their shins and watch kids sit out of events at meets due to shin splints and other pains. And I've seen this as well as a volunteer track coach. I've seen some of the kids sort of limping down the track, and I say, what's wrong? And they say, it hurts. And we try to find a way to roll the kids forward, to get them off the track onto a different surface. And once this occurs, these shin splints occur, it's very difficult to get the athlete back on the track and up and running. So we lose time for the athlete's in pain, and I think it's unnecessary. So we're going to try to advocate for a new resurfacing of the track. The parent says it's not just my son, others as well on the team, and it happens all season long. The trainer, the athletic trainer, she says, is fantastic. He has suggested insoles and other treatments for the athlete, but still, the cause is what needs to be tackled, not the effect. Our boys' teams just finished up the regular meets with only one loss. The girls are doing great. They all work very, very hard, and because they work hard, they deserve a good surface to practice on and to compete on. I agree. So that's what a parent says. A visiting athlete says, came here for a playoff meet. A distance runner from a competing school asked our trainer why his shins hurt after running on our track. The athlete had never experienced any shin problems before. So others experience this as well. Next, the staff. The coaches instruct the runners on how to avoid shin splints, meticulously before the season starts. Sometimes they also have the students use alternate surfaces, such as running on the football field, running in slow motion against the water in the pool, using big sweeping but soft on the legs techniques to move in the water to try to ameliorate the pain that they're in, but still get a good workout. And we often have the kids work on wrestling mats because they're very thick and soft. The athletic trainer has had to deal with multiple physical issues related to the track surface. That's the key for many years. So the trainer, Chris, he wasn't able to make it tonight. He sends his regrets. He's at the soccer game. He says every track season, many athletes develop this shin pain due to the track. The pain can progress to a number of injuries, shin splints, stress fractures, and compartment syndrome, just to name a few. It leads to other issues because of the way the body is connected. Athletes from other schools, they complain about the pain that they get from running on our track. And he says, here's the bottom line. If the board does go with a new surface, he highly recommends that it be done, that we get a new surface, not just repairs, but a new surface, and that it be done properly. And so we would rely on Tom and his team to instruct us as to what's out there nowadays with respect to tracks and their surfaces. This would reduce the number of athletes dealing with these issues. It would also save in rehabilitation time, and this, money spent on x-rays and therapies and other testing.
Mr. Ritter, since you mentioned it, and we do have Mr. LaBeouf here, and what's the latest?
Whoa, I just got two more here, come on.
Okay.
I went to a different school. This is what it looks like. That's my shoe. That's a pole vault pit, and you can see that. I took my shoe off in order to give scale to how big the damage
size
He wants
is.
to
is
know
your
what
shoe?
size your shoe is.
8.5.
Okay.
It's not, okay. But you can see, other tracks suffer these weather, age-relating, debilitating erosions as well, and they also need to be roofed. So we're not any different. It's a typical surface, and here's our track. So how's our track doing? This is the runway pit to the Jack Bova Memorial Stadium wall right here. This is the pit. You can see the degradation
He's
along the
still with
sides
us.
here, and I blow it up here. You can see that the cracks exist down in there.
I may kill myself.
So thank you for your consideration. Tom also would like to say a few words, and if we could have Jen come up. You need to come up.
Can I just say one thing first,
Sure.
please? I think that everybody's in favor and knows that the track needs to be replaced. Like, it's kind of been on a long-term budgeting path. This isn't anything new to us, and I'm not aware that anybody is opposed to fixing the track. I think that we just, at this point, need to get estimates and decide which direction we're going to go, just so the public is clear that nobody's saying we're not going to fix or repair the track. This has been talked about for quite some time in our long-term planning.
Hence why we have it here on the agenda in October to plan for it.
Yeah, the only, I don't really,
Tom, you have to come up here so the folks can hear from you.
Shin splints, Tom.
listen, old age.
Okay.
How's that?
I tried.
No, I don't really have a whole lot to add except this. When the track was first put in, the specs were for a very good track. Literally at the last moment, the day before the track was poured, I was informed that they had changed the specs to save some money. Frankly, the money that was saved to do that has been spent many times over through the athletes with what they've had to go through. Look, any artificial surface is not as good as training on cinders. I mean, when I started coaching, we still had cinders. It's a lot easier to train on cinders without problems. But this surface was hard from the very beginning. The only benefit to this surface is it's fast. It's really fast. But that one athlete that complained, it's not the only one. Almost every school that comes here, the kids ask, why are my legs hurting? And they'll ask Chris, or they'll ask me, or they'll ask their coach. It's just the track, the surface. The surface was poor to start with. It looked great. It looked fantastic. I mean, we weren't going to complain too much. You got 8 lanes, you got a new facility, all of that stuff. But when they did that, it shouldn't have been done. And by the way, the track at the middle school was kept. It was a very good surface. And I realize you guys are looking at selling that, but these tracks are not supposed to just be put in and then left to go for 15 years.
So, Mr. LaBeouf, are you suggesting cinders are still?
No,
Okay. So
I'm not
where are you at?
suggesting.
I was about to
No,
ask that.
I'm
where are
not. I'm
we
not
at?
doing that because in the long run, the maintenance people would probably want to shoot me. There's a lot more maintenance involved with
So
cinders.
what are you recommending?
A good surface.
And
You know,
what
they
is a
didn't.
good
They didn't
surface?
propose the top level, but they were right underneath the top level. And
Which is
even
what?
now, if I go over to the middle school, that track is still, despite the fact it's been there as long as this one,
It's spongy.
is still much softer
Springy.
than this track. It's
So
not.
what is it actually made of? Is this some composite or what?
Now, all of the surfaces are made of the same thing. There's just a difference in the depth. The final surface is really ground up tires. It's really all it is. It's rubber, and you have a base layer. It's like laying a road, but eventually you have asphalt, and then on top of that asphalt there are some other layers. And the surface that was put on here, I think, ended up only being like 3/8 of an inch, where I think it was supposed to be a half an inch or something like that. Guys, I'm not an expert on artificial tracks. When they told us what they were going to put in the first place, I was thrilled because it was just underneath. It was something that was going to last. But even then, when you put it in, it needs maintenance. Every couple of years, somebody needs to look at it. It doesn't need to be resurfaced every time, but there's some maintenance. If you keep it up, then you can spend a lot less money.
Is there a track that you've been on recently in another school district that you would recommend that we contact their maintenance?
We were at South Fayette last year. It was in good shape, really good shape. I'm not going to say Baldwin because theirs is just falling apart. It's been awful.
I think they moved the Baldwin Invitational this year.
Well, they moved a lot, but that was because of the situation with their athletic director, not the other stuff. So, you know, I mean, if you want me to do some looking, fine. We were at South Fayette. They had a new facility, so that track seemed impressive. But again, it's brand new. I don't really know what they put in. Norwin has a very good service. In fact, that's a really good suggestion there, is to check with Norwin to see what they did. Clearly Randy would have some connections there to know what was going on. But I'm not advocating that we find the top of the line track, but it's something that the kids can train on without literally having to be, I'm not kidding. More than 50% of our athletes have shin splints. And I'm not just talking about the runners, the throwers. I mean, Coach mentioned, sometimes we go to soft surfaces. Frankly, we try to stay on the track as much as we can, because going back and forth from hard surface to soft surface actually increases the problem. So you're better off just staying on the hard surface. But it's a problem, and it's not. I've talked about it briefly. I've sent a memo here and there. But again, I don't want to advocate spending millions and millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars on the track. But if we've got enough money to put something decent in there, certainly would be great for the athletes.
Thank you. And Mrs. Meisner, could you take a minute or two just to
Thank
add
you.
some color to this? And then Tommy,
Appreciate the
you
opportunity.
need to go, right?
Thank you. Yes, I
Thank you.
have a class I can teach. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jen Meisner. Thank you all for your time. I have a son on the track team, so a lot of the comments that Mr. Ritter showed are some things from an email I sent. My kid is one of them. Coming out, shins taped, ice all over. He has pulled out, scheduled for so many events, runs 2 of them. Sitting down and, he'll wave from down there. I'm like, what's up? He's like, too sore, can't do it. Okay. Coach LaBeouf has recommended shoes for him, like his first year. He's a junior now, so his freshman year. He said, maybe try a different type of shoe. We went to that. Chris, the trainer, was excellent. He said, these shoes are great. Now tell your mom to go get these insoles. But we're watching him come home and limp around for a while. We're watching him get discouraged with, okay, I want to run all this, but I'm too sore. And he's talked with his friends. They're experiencing the same thing. We watch at the meets. We try to be at the meets, and we watch. We also go different invitationals that he's been to. He goes, he runs, doesn't have the same experience. Little less pain, runs his events, no problem. So it's not just the meets, it's daily practice for 2.5 hours. So it's a lot of wear and tear. I think I had expressed this, I was talking to Mr. Ritter, I ran myself years ago, not for Gateway, for somewhere else, and I experienced the shift that we had one year when they said the track needs redone. And the following spring, once it had been resurfaced, I don't know if they did a replacement or resurface, or just some repair, but the difference in how we felt running on it was amazing. It was like running on a cloud. We were amazed at, you didn't realize just how bad it was until you were on something better. So I know it's something that I know the kids would appreciate. I know the parents appreciate it, not worrying about having to come home, medication that they maybe wouldn't have to take on a regular basis. Icing, making sure they're good to go for the next day. Can you be at practice? Can you run this event? So anything you guys can do to help the surface out, greatly appreciated. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience like to speak? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Melody Weisel. I'm another parent just coming to represent the track team, and my son runs cross country and track. He's a distance runner. He's a sophomore this year. And I just wanted to add that I wanted to compliment Gateway, first of all, because he is special needs. He has autism, and he's doing really well. He's really benefiting from Gateway Sports, so I want to commend everybody. Thank you very much. It's the reason he gets up in the morning for track and for cross country, and the coaches have been excellent. He has not had any issues yet since he's a sophomore. I just wanted to add that it would be good if we had a really good surface. That would be less for me and other parents to worry about. My son, he goes to enough therapies after school every day just for his disabilities. So it would be nice to not have to worry about another doctor's appointment in the future or anything like that. So I would really appreciate it. I know there's a lot of other concerned parents too that unfortunately couldn't be here because the cross country team had a meet today and it was an hour away. So kind of hard to get here on time. So that's it. I'm not good speaking in front of people, but,
We think you are.
Yeah, you did. Wonderful job.
so I'd really appreciate it if you give it, think about what Coach LaBeouf said, what Jen said, and just give our kids the best opportunity possible, because this is a great school and these kids are wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments about the track or?
You're good.
Do we have any bids yet, or haven't we got to that?
We do.
Ready for those?
Those bids are just for resurfacing, right?
Resurfacing, repairing, resurfacing, cleaning, repairing, resurfacing, cleaning all the drains, and new urethane surface, on the top.
From 15 years ago, when they expanded it to the 8 lanes, they did put in basically the asphalt, as Tom had discussed, asphalt, probably a 6-inch layer, from what I remember. Then they added the sprayed rubber on top of
Right,
it.
there's a padding and a urethane
Yes.
and rubber granules that kind of melt into it to give you that texture.
So they would take it down to the,
We're not milling
Asphalt.
off,
No.
not taking
Okay.
off,
adding on.
adding on.
Okay. That's
You know,
interesting.
and there's loose edges because of the drainage system. That happens, it releases from the asphalted spots. There's some dips that are some sinkage in the areas that you talked about
Yes.
earlier. You'll see water ponding in some areas of it
So
that,
they can just-
happened over time. So those would all be, re-leveled and
Including
filled.
what they call the D areas in the back of the end zones.
In all the areas. The D areas are primarily asphalt, other than the areas where you have the pole vault runways and the long jump runways. Those would also all be resurfaced the same way.
May I recommend that we look at another sealer, because we're constantly painting that to try to match the track.
Yes, which
You
we
know what I'm
just
saying,
did this,
yeah.
the asphalt this
Correct,
year.
yes.
Yeah, because it hadn't been done in many years until this year.
Yeah, so maybe something, because it's still lightening a little bit due to the sun. And,
The sun's gonna fade it,
Yeah.
unfortunately. That I think is gonna be an ongoing.
Mhm.
How many companies have looked at the track?
But we've dealt with Nagel, which they're one of the largest in this part of the country that have done a lot of it, and that's who we're looking at.
Did we get a bid to see how much replace the track with a new?
I got
road track
numbers
in?
from him, but not a formal bid. They were pretty pricey to, tear it all out and, start fresh. I did have them out here a couple times, looking at both tracks,
Did they give
since-
their recommendation, or did you just ask them for a resurfacing price?
No, I asked them for them to come look at it and
Okay.
tell us what they thought. The recommendation was to not tear it up, because overall, it's not falling apart and torn up. But there are, and I have numerous photographs with exactly what needs to be done from them. That, we walked every inch of it, checked every loose edge, and we do have all that. But they recommend fixing all that, cleaning the drains, cleaning the track, because Mother Nature makes it a little dirty, covering the lines with a block eye, re-urethaning the entire track, every rubber area, and then relining the whole thing.
So that process would add this,
Well, I have, and
I don't hear
like
anything about the softness.
Mr. LaBeouf, I am not a track expert. It adds, in their estimation, 8 to 10 years. But as far as your question as the cushiness or the softness of the track, that's a question I think I have to ask, honestly, because where are we gonna be compared to our original track and this other track? And that is something, we are adding millimeters of product, but
Right,
is
so
that
there's-
enough
no,
to
there's-
get it there? We don't know.
There's no reason to assume that's gonna cushion.
No, and that's something we
At all.
need to know what that end result grade of track is.
John, there's no actual like compressibility measure or for
G-Max test or something.
I would think there is, because there is for turf.
Hardness of the track, and I'm sure there's the company that
They
would-
have to gauge it in some fashion, I would assume.
What do they say about the junior high track?
It's good. It's springy, in other words. I've run on both.
The track needs a lot of
It
repairs.
needs a lot of
Yeah.
repair and maintenance.
And it needs to be soaked and cleansed and.
Probably
Well, there's a lot of
striped.
It's easy to run on.
That track was put in by a track company.
And that's what
The high
made
school
it.
here was put in by a company that installs roads.
Right. And Nagel is a track company.
Huh.
And actually, I think they did the others. So,
That's lowest responsible
Can we
bid.
get, like, some more
Construction, they do
pardon me?
Can you reach out to try to get some more opinions?
I will.
Like this.
So this is the track company, I believe they did the middle school track as well, and that track needs quite a bit of repair. But it is, like you say,
It's
softer.
softer
And
springier.
so, and again, that was a matter of dollars back when that all happened. So we can see what the
Mr. Schott remembers
result
that now.
can be
I
after
remember
it.
those nightmares.
You know, and that's what we would have to do.
So the long and short of it is for this board, it's gonna come,
They're ignorant, John.
Pardon me?
They're ignorant.
Let John speak, please.
Well, no, they're ignorant. They're all Shorts over there telling jokes.
2 years later, on the UVG. I was telling them the email story.
Sharing some memories.
so the long and short of it for this board, this committee is, we're gonna have to, the committee's gonna have to make a recommendation to the board as to whether to invest heavily in order to get a new surface for the track, or to go with a different approach, and that is to cleanse it and reseal it. So,
Resurface, I believe.
not resurface, it's to spray urethane coating on it to brighten the colors.
Well, that's not gonna give us
No.
any more padding.
That's
so
the trick,
That
right.
doesn't seem like that's an option.
I agree.
Right, based on what we've heard, and I have no reason to doubt you or Coach LaBeouf or the parents are here, we need more cushion in this track. So the question seemed to be, how much cushion is adequate and what does it cost?
And also where we're currently at with a G-Max test. in
Apparently,
relationship to what's
apparently we're in
safe.
like Parkway
Yeah,
level.
probably.
So,
Great for road.
exactly.
So maybe some research we can do and
Well, we
have
can
some
see
testing
how
done.
they can test it, what that does, you know, to, however it is that they test it, whatever it's called, to get it to that grade of track. And then what additional cost is that? Because all these other processes, you know, still need to take place there, but it's the
And from my
top surface
recollection,
that
I mean,
needs-
just remembering going, and trust me, I'm getting up there in age a little bit, but the more padding you add to the track, the more it decomposes quickly over time. That's what I was
Seems
told years ago,
reasonable.
yes.
I mean, you'd expect that.
So that's why I think they came up with that happy medium, as Mr. LaBeouf was talking about, not the top layer or top level, but something in between, based on the use and being a school district, so.
Does our other track get the same amount of use?
No,
Not even close.
No,
So we can't gauge how long a track with give will last based on that.
not really.
it's.
I'm sure they would know
It-
that.
it's almost-
track companies.
Their expected life is around 20 years. The base is the primary thing.
Scotty, you seem skeptical.
I do. 20 years is a long
That's why they're
time.
such a
Well,
well.
We get 15
It's only
out of
been
this one,
15.
yeah.
Yeah, right now you're at
We
15.
got 5 more years then.
And the base is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's a road.
Jack, have you ever
It
seen
is,
some of
but
those
if it
pencils
goes,
that have
then it's-
an eraser on the end?
It's
When
found
you go
below.
to erase something,
If they don't put
and
that
the
in
eraser
right
itself is
originally,
really
that's where
hard.
you have
Yes.
Right.
It's really
When it's
frustrating.
a brand new pencil,
We don't
it's
have
really
that
soft
real
and
issue.
spongy and rubbery, and you can make your erasers. So that's exactly what the track is like here. It's hard.
Just, can't
No, I've been on it.
district
Hard
wide.
pencil race.
Yeah.
I get it, but the question
It's
is,
an
or
outstanding
not even a
knowledge.
question, it sounds like
I
it
like
was
that.
hard from day one.
It was shallow from day one, but the sun bakes down, and time is what makes these these chemicals
like
degrade
another
apart.
That's on the agenda.
Okay, so the question still is, what degree of softness, for want of a better word, can we use, and what's it cost?
Exactly.
So who's doing
That's
that?
what we'll get.
Mr. Brown on that? All right.
He's all over that.
Scotty, you okay with that?
We can pull out
I'll work for you.
the documents from 2003 to look at the spec.
One opinion. Find another company besides Nagel.
Check to see what like Norwin, Randy.
I've made notes to talk to them to see when they did it
Right.
and what they did
How it's wearing.
and who they did it.
What, Paul?
Go ahead, Paul. Take the mic.
No, I'm just saying, we had an alternative set to go for consideration next Tuesday, but I think we should probably, we'll pull that off the agenda.
Just
So
to
we
do a little bit more research.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
If I may, since we're talking about athletic things, over the years, I've heard people ask about turf for the baseball field.
Yes.
And I don't know, has that research ever been done? Any idea of what it would cost to do
It
that?
has, and don't quote me on this, but I want to say that the facility up at high school that has the baseball, girls softball, and there's a large area in center field that can actually house a soccer field as well. We got a bid of 1.2 million.
Yeah, pretty close.
For everything. And that means digging the surface up, adding drainage, which is a one-time fee. And then after it wears out, which expectancy for baseball, softball, and perhaps soccer is probably 20 years compared with 10 years for like a football field. You just have to replace the top layer then, which probably would be about $300,000-$400,000. So 1.2 million.
As long as we don't have to put those tanks in again like we did with the other one. I think that was a change order.
We talked to
told we didn't-
Monroeville.
Yeah, we didn't have to.
We didn't have to do that because underneath the student parking lot are retention drains, well, tractor trailer size retention drains that house all the water because we were like shocked and amazed at what we had to do per Monroeville with the code when we were putting in the artificial turf field. I mean, these are huge, huge drains, bins, what you want to call them. So we were told we would not have to do that. They would somehow route down over the hill, tie into that.
Straight to pick him.
Yeah, straight down.
By my house, yeah, you get that right by my house, that'd be great.
Well,
Down the
that's-
alley, exactly.
Storm- Michael's
Storm
right
management
across.
TV should cover.
Yep.
So one could make the argument that some degree of savings would occur from simply not maintaining all the grass and the grounds. If it was, so obviously it's not a wash.
It's not a wash, however, over 20 years, it would come close to a wash because the amount of time from the maintenance department, and Bob has some numbers, because we talked about this probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's significant, the amount of resources with field dried, different materials. Bob goes through, I don't know how many pallets of that, many.
Many thousands of dollars.
And then, you know, you're not worried about the rainouts.
And our kids actually get out there and play.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to suggest that we
Big thing.
kind of continue this conversation in earnest and understand that there are gonna be residents who will
Yes.
say, oh, they're spending more money on athletic fields as if that's frivolous, and I get it, and I understand that, and we did just ask them to pay a bit more in taxes, but perhaps if these fields were with this kind of material, first of all, they'd be more useful, and maybe we could
No doubt.
make the facilities more useful to the community at large so they could get a bit better return on their investment. So I know you hear 1.2 million and there will be people who will say you could buy books and computers, which we do all the time. And there will be other folks who could say that could go toward our salaries, which money already does go toward. But we can do all these things. And I think you could make a case that reduced maintenance might not pay for it, but it will go a long way toward contributing. And while we're finding sponsors for potential scoreboards, I heard that you had once had an idea about a name for that field that I heard is brilliant. I won't say it publicly because this probably isn't the time, but that's a great idea.
And I will say that Those discussions have continued. The individual that I was meeting with, for lack of a better word, had moved on from that facility. And now there's another president, CEO. And the conglomerate has come together, and I've actually had some informal discussions with them.
Great.
So stay tuned.
All right, so however we continue this or explore the cost or whatever the process is, I think we ought to do that.
Okay. And we will get the board information on that moving forward.
Before we move on from the track, anything with the throwing fields, or they stay the same?
Throwing fields
Well, the
that we
throwing
use
field down
right
at Moss
now
Lake
are the
Middle. Right.
maintenance field, which is a dirt and grass field.
Correct.
No discussion on that. Obviously, you cannot put a turf field in there to throw
Right.
javelins and shot puts.
Correct.
We are looking at building the shot put area in a different area and gravel for them with discussions with the track team, Mr. Washington and Mr. LaBeouf. So that's something we're hoping to have for the springtime in a different area because they tear up the field, terribly with the shot puts. Discus, javelin, there's not been any other discussions. I'm sure if we get to a point that we talk about turfing other fields, that's certainly gonna have to be something we, need to consider because we need a place to put them, But right now, not had any issues with them as far as the track teams were concerned, other than maybe creating this new shot put area.
Because that does tear up the field.
It does, it's like landmines everywhere.
Can we also look into getting the sand pit covers?
I think they got them, didn't they, Mr. Brown? I think they got those.
Who?
I thought, the athletic department, I don't know.
Not to my knowledge,
Okay.
we replaced the sand for them
Okay.
with the right type of sand this past season.
They
I'll
fill
check
up-
with them.
They fill up with water and everything
It's
else.
the drains,
Right.
unfortunately. They're still gonna do that even with covers, but crap won't get in
Cleans it up, makes it look
Right.
nicer.
there. It does.
Thank you.
Okay, can we go on to the next problem? Gateway Middle School sidewalk. Mr. Brown.
Did you give the update on the Anna Marino Stadium ramp project?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so we were on two.
Actually, that should stay district-wide
Yeah, thank you.
sidewalk repairs that they're just wear and tear over many years that we've gotten bids. I actually am meeting with another concrete contractor tomorrow to do a walkthrough to get a bid
See you
on
later.
the same area so we can get a apples to apples price, see what we can do. The first bid seemed quite high, but we'll see what the other contractors have to say. So that's where we are with that. It's just not the middle school. You could go to any school in our district and find concrete that needs repaired.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the Gateway Campus, the landscaping contract, retention drains, and the tree removals. On the tree removal, were they at the high school?
That is the area of the northeast corner of the stadium, behind the garage, up towards the wood shop area. We're gonna look for bids to get that done over the winter. It's a large area. Dr. Short and I did get some prices for that whole area about a year and a half ago, and it was extremely costly. So we're gonna narrow the focus to just, to that area initially. Again, that's something that's, a little more than what our people are capable of doing, not having the equipment. So that is an area we want to address for over the winter when all the vegetation dies. It's actually a little cheaper when you do that, when you don't have the poison and the leaves involved.
Are you talking the hillside going down?
We're talking behind the garage at the far end of the stadium.
Okay.
and that goes over to where the gate is. There's a rear gate there that brings you into the back end of the stadium,
Where the
that
ti-
area.
Where the tires are at.
Up behind wood shop.
And we
Yeah,
were
to the end.
also looking at a number of the pine trees that are facing Route 48. We have begun internal conversations about the new marquee, depending upon the architect firm that we're going with, because currently, right now, those pine trees almost block our existing marquee as you're driving up on 48. So we would probably tie in the tree removal with a number of those pines out front.
Yeah, there's 30 of them. You don't
Yeah.
realize there's quite that many.
And when those things were put in 20 years ago, they were small and, you know, not that wide, but now it's just,
Is there any
So
other
you're saying they
area,
got bigger?
any other school?
they did. The tree company put them in, by the way.
You know, there's none that are that,
Job security.
I guess not obvious, but
No,
problematic at this time.
I'm just saying if there's any other school-wide, we could tie it in
Could
and
be
get a cheaper rate.
here and there, but we can get down.
Did you talk to Jungle Jim?
Jungle Gym.
Jungle Jim's a local
I don't
tree
know
guy.
Jungle Jim.
Write down Jungle Jim, call him, he's pretty reasonable.
Okay.
You're Bob, what's his name, who works here?
Ron,
He works with Jungle Jim.
Oh, okay, yeah, you mentioned that. I didn't know that was the name.
Jungle Jim.
Why are you talking names public?
He just likes the name, John.
He said, submit something to him,
I will. Bring them
local.
up.
The retention drains, Bob, now we have a number of drains throughout the campus. So it's just not
Campuses, yes.
campuses. So,
They would be the storm drain. We cleaned them out, quite a few of them throughout the summer. We have in the agenda for Tuesday for the study session, some numbers after, you know, Scotty and I did speak. I went out to a contractor that we do use here that has all their clearances and do that type of work, concrete type work, in repairs. So we have that on the agenda for Tuesday, rates and dollar figures to bring them in. Guys that do that type of work every day will do it 3 to 4 times faster than a maintenance guy that gets called off to do everything else all day long. One takes us 3 to 4 to 5 days to get done, where they can go in and do it in a day. So we looked at it in order to keep our infrastructure intact. That was kind of the thought process behind it. Let's get them in here, get it done, and move on. So that was why we have it on the agenda for the board for this upcoming week.
Thank you.
Landscaping contract, we also have that on the agenda. That is more beautification, is probably, landscaping contract is probably not the correct terminology, but it's flowers and mulching, and that we did a few years ago, that it ended. They come in 3 to 4 times a year, clean out all the flower beds, plant the flowers in the spring and in the fall. Unfortunately, our seasons don't always coincide with flowers blooming, but you know, we try to get them in there early so they're here and makes our properties look more appealing. So that also is going to be on the agenda for Monday for us to proceed to be able to put it out to public bid.
Yeah, my president, Scott Williams, mentioned something to me last night about the landscaping outside, the flowers and stuff. He had a good suggestion. The people at Forbes, they have like their own nursery or whatever you want to call it. If they could come over in the spring and plant flowers for us and keep them up, that way it'd be part of their grades and everything.
I agree. That's clever.
Thank you.
And we would welcome that. You know, we have people that could, you know, assist and oversee and do that, but any type of help like that, and Forbes is really a part of Monroeville or a part of us. We would certainly welcome that.
And Scotty's a big cheese over there, so he can make it happen.
That is a good point. And watching plants.
Right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Just volunteered to oversee it all.
Okay, I don't know who's gonna talk on this one, Dr. Short or Mr. Brown. The Gateway Middle School feasibility study review of proposals from architect firms, 360 Group update.
Thank you, Mr. Lapsovich. Back in August, the board had had some conversation with central administration, examining possibly bringing in an architectural firm to do a feasibility study. So we were able to do that over the last probably month and a half, almost 2 months. We narrowed it down to 4 groups that we contacted, 3 of which were able to come in and meet with not only central office, Rocco Telly, building level principal, Mr. Brown. We had some board members scattered throughout these informal meetings. During that time, we wanted to at least establish with these groups the scope of the work that we were looking for. And it kind of ties in exactly what we had reviewed over the summer during the presentation in the LGI, that currently the property at Gateway Middle School is listed for sale. The idea behind that would be to, if we're able to generate enough funds to help offset the cost of building a brand new middle school here on campus. And to do that, we wanted to know, A, what the potential cost of a new building would be on this campus, so they understood that process, as well as the possible sale of the property. Option 2 was, in fact, if we do not sell that property, if we decide to maintain and keep that, and then begin to renovate and expand that into a 5, 6, 7, 8 building, what would need done as far as the scope, meaning cafeteria work, new hallways, classrooms, auditorium work. So they completely understood what we were looking for from them as far as the feasibility study. Each meeting probably lasted an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So it was a very in-depth conversation. Each architectural firm that we brought in probably had an entourage of 5 to 10 people. So they came prepared. We had the charts and the maps and the aerial views of the properties that we were looking at, as well as I supplied them with the PowerPoint presentation that we reviewed back in July, I believe it was. So all the information was given to them. They have responded with the fees. I've made that available to the board members, making sure everybody did receive those. We would like to make a recommendation in this week's board packet for the feasibility study. We wanted to present you with the information and then have the company that we would recommend come in and meet with the board. So that way, if you have any questions up front, you can do so, and then allow them the 60 to 90 days that we're looking for the feasibility study. That would lead us into the middle of January, which is the timeline that we've been looking at all along, as well as information related to the 360 group that I had shared with the board as far as an update from Art McNally. I always don't know. McNulty.
McCullough.
McCullough.
So, Bob, do you want to maybe summarize information related to what we were looking for, the groups that came forward? Or
We've had, over the past months, different groups that had interest through the 360 group. And on occasion, Mr. Lapsovich, you joined us on some walkthroughs that I believe that I was with 3 different groups that have come through, expressed quite a bit of interest. Recently, it seems that 2 of them are narrowing down their focus and in the near future possibly bringing something to us. And that's with 2 groups that they have. Obviously, nothing formal has been brought to the board. No numbers have been discussed, but there's quite a bit of interest, like I said, between 2 different groups that have been here and have returned just to walk the property and see what's over there.
Multiple tours of the facilities
Yeah.
with different hierarchy of leadership within the organizations.
Yes, and some are interested in just the land, some are interested in some of the buildings. So it varies on their end result, what they're looking to do with it. So we're hoping to see something from our last talks with them in the next few weeks, that we're able to bring something up, whether it's what we're looking for or not. But we're hoping to have some kind of news.
Once, and I'll just refer to him as Art from the 360 group, contacts us with a potential meeting from one of these interested parties, based on what the board has directed us in the past, we would meet with those individual companies, bring the offer, if an offer exists, to the board as a whole to discuss. By no means are we in any position here to accept, negotiate, whatever. Our job is merely to gather the information presented to the board as a whole.
Are
So-
we, I'm
I'm
gonna
sorry.
interrupt, are we looking to put a price on it, Gateway, put a price on it ourselves, or are we gonna wait to see what they're gonna offer without knowing?
Based on our last conversation about this topic, it was advised to us that we were just going to hold steady with not having a price on the property. If the board wishes to change that based off of that recent correspondence from the 360 group, that would be the prerogative of the board at this point in time. And that's something perhaps that we can discuss later.
Yeah, you got something to
In executive
discuss
session,
closed doors.
yes.
90 days.
Yes. So we do anticipate something coming forward here within the next several weeks, based off of Mr. Brown's walkthrough a few days ago or last week. So let's see what happens. And we can make a recommendation at that point in time. But with the feasibility study, we're going to move forward. We're going to make the recommendation, bring that architectural firm in if the board chooses. If not, we would approve it and then have a 60 to 90-day study. Then have that architectural firm present it informally to the board and then open it up to the public. Any questions on that process? We seem very pleased with the architectural groups that we've had conversations with. Very professional. We examined, looked at their portfolio of work that they've done. They're very known architectural firms, reputable. So we're confident that moving forward, they would present to us everything that we were offering. And they were actually very pleased with our preparation for the meeting. Providing them the scope that we see being done within the buildings. So,
Dr. Short, maybe you could also tell the board the refund we would be getting if they,
Yes,
they get the contract.
a number of these firms that we've talked to, when they present a feasibility study, there is of course, a cost to that. Some organizations like to deliver the fact that if we go with them, they would then roll the price into
Credited
a
toward
credit
future.
towards the bigger project of a renovation or a building.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
So the board has the information with the cost. We do have the different brochures. There's the listed one that they've done work at in the neighboring. We'll make these available to the board members or anyone from the public that may want one.
Richard?
I don't.
Richard.
Richard, where you at?
Anybody? No? Okay.
So we do have that material.
Nobody wants.
So we're moving forward and we're excited to go ahead here.
Thank you for your diligence.
Thank you, Dr. Short. I'd like to thank Dr. Rossi, his sidekick next to him. Hey, Chelsea, how do I get the honor to
And
see you
Chelsea.
tonight? How do I see the honor of you tonight?
I think I.
She's here just in case.
Just in case.
Okay, I appreciate you coming.
Sure.
And all the board members and.
George, before we close, could I make an announcement?
Yes, sir.
Sure. We've got a League of Women Voters is sponsoring a debate. We've got an election coming up in about 3 or 4 weeks. It's a debate between
He
the
didn't
25th
Norwood.
Legislative District candidates. It's going to be held at the Boyce campus of CCAC, October 24th, 6 p.m. I'll say it again, at Boyce campus, October 24th, 6 p.m. It's a debate between the 25th Legislative District candidates, and this does impact education.
Thank you for that. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Yeah, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you.